There we go. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Council's first meeting of 2024. Warm welcome to our management team and members of the public seated in the public gallery. Thank you for your attendance. I do advise that the meeting is being recorded, live streamed. So welcome also to those people joining us online. Our agenda, quite substantial given the 3 meetings and being early in the year, but we'll work through it as always, doggedly. Starting with agenda item number 1, that is apologies and leave of absence. And can we have a move and a second to grant Councillor Brown an apology for tonight's meeting? And maybe to include, if you don't mind, the mover, Councillor Metzger. I'm not sure what's happening there for. We might have an answer to that question. No. So, Councillor Brown, Councillor Metzger, happy with that? Councillor Sims?
Yes, I.
Thank you. Seconder was Councillor Fiddler. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? That motion is carried. Thank you. Item 2 is the requirement for me to ensure that any councillor who has a pecuniary or conflict of interest in relation to any item on our agenda tonight has declared that interest and provide the General Manager with the documentation that is associated with that declaration. Now, assuming that each of you have done so, should that be the case. Item 3 is a confirmation of minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 11th of December 2023 with a recommendation that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the Latrobe Council held at the Council Chambers Latrobe on 11th December 2023 be taken as read and confirmed. Before I seek a mover and a seconder, I believe there may be a minor or an alteration to that suggested recommendation.
Yeah, there was email correspondence with Councillor Metzger over the weekend and this morning, and I think if she was here, she was going to move a different motion than what's there. That has been circulated to councillors late this afternoon. So
for the record, do you mind reading that motion and then we'll ask if someone's prepared to move it?
Yeah, so what was suggested that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of the Latrobe Council held at the Council Chambers Latrobe on the 11th of December 2023 be taken as read and confirmed, noting that at their special closed meeting held on the 20th of December 2023, Council endorsed that item 5 under notices of motion at the council meeting held on the 11th of December 2023, moved by Councillor Metzger and seconded by Councillor Baldock, be overturned and council not provide the following reports to councillors. Number 1 was Latrobe and Kentish Council's Engagement Survey, May 2022, summary and text comments report, and number 2, Latrobe and Kentish Council's Pulse Survey 2023, summary of text comments report. And I think Councillor Metzger was just keen to have that on the record to complete the story.
Okay. So is there a mover and a seconder for that motion, please, councillors? Councillor Fiedler and Councillor Mead, thank you. Any discussion? No, if not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Motion, those against? Motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. Next item on our agenda is agenda item number 5, which is notices of motion. And as I am the mover of a notice of motion, get it right, I'll vacate the chair and ask Deputy Mayor Mead to chair this part of the meeting, if she would.
So we have the motion under item 5, and the motion is that the council commit to consult and collaborate with the family of the late former deputy mayor. Thank you. And long-serving councillor Rick Rocker to determine the location and the suitability of a memorial to acknowledge and commemorate Rick's contribution and commitment to the Latrobe community, including agriculture, arts, sport and recreation, and local government. We have a mover for that.
Second.
So.
Yep. Is Ed Freshney and Councillor Sims. Would you like to talk to that, Ed Freshney?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This motion was prompted by a letter council received from a member of the Rockcliffe family, a copy of which has been provided to councillors, suggesting a number of things in relation to not only the location of the Big Spud, but also the commemoration of the contribution of the commitment and the contribution and commitment that former Deputy Mayor Rick Rockcliffe made to the Latrobe community. Most of you would be aware of that contribution over many, many decades, primarily to local government, but also to agriculture and particularly the pop industry. But Rick was also very much a supporter of the arts, sport and recreation, and community groups particularly. I'm pleased and privileged to be able to commend to councillors the motion, and the intent is clearly to sit down and discuss with the Rockcliffe family the potential for a memorial, the location, and the most fitting, in their view, the most fitting memorial to reflect Rick's life and contribution. The key will be, as I say, their thoughts, their views on what is right and proper, and we'll respect those views, I'm sure. As I say, I commend the motion to you.
No, I'm very happy with that.
Any other comment or question around the room? Thank you very much.
Sorry, there's a couple.
Oh, yes.
No, I thought Gerald was going to say something. I was just going to say, I'm just going to abstain from voting just because I never actually had the pleasure of meeting Rick or being in his circles. So I think that should be made by people who knew him.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions? All right, thank you. Certainly, thank you very much for the motion, and really look forward to the opportunity to hopefully work with Rick's family on a potential location for a memorial. So if everybody's happy, we'll put that to the vote. All in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? That motion's carried. Thank you.
Now revert to the chair. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, councillors, for your consideration of that motion. If Councillor Bordock could, thanks, Jonathan. For the record, I just note Councillor Bordock declared a conflict of interest and left the meeting during that motion. Okay, next item on the agenda is item 7, which is a response to questions raised at the prior ordinary meeting of council. The responses and questions and responses listed there. There's a recommendation that responses to the questions from Neil McClimate, Loxley Felmingham and Annie Brennan at the meeting held 11th December 2023 be received and noted. Do we have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Fiddler and Councillor Wicks, thank you. No need for discussion, as is protocol. All those in favour? And those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Next item is public participation and questions on those from the public. Now we have questions listed there and the proposed responses with a recommendation that council, in relation to the questions on those received from Michael Babcock and James Redgrave, endorse the responses proposed and authorise their release. Is there a mover for a motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I think you might have got one of those names incorrect. You said Michael Babcock, not Badcock.
Bulldog, not Badcock.
Oh, sorry, Michael Baldock and James Redgrave. My apologies. Thank you for that correction. Noted. Yes. Is there a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Mead and Councillor Fiddler. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 9 is public participation questions without notice from the public, whereby members of the public can choose to ask questions in relation to council activities. Of course, there are some guidelines. As Mayor and Chair, I'm required to ensure that questions don't contain defamatory remarks or offensive or improper language, for example. That questions don't profit to advance a particular point of view rather than making a genuine inquiry, etc., etc. There are 10 requirements under the policy that I'm required to ensure that questions of council are genuine and comply with that policy. Is there anybody in the public area who wishes to speak to council? But just an indication of hands, if I could, please. 4, 5. Before we do, I do need to read two questions that were meant to be questions without notice from the previous meeting on the 11th of December, and they unfortunately weren't read out. And I apologise to the person who submitted them, Mr. Michael Baldock, and I'll read them out now along with the responses so that they form part of the record. First question submitted by Mr. Baldock was, can you provide a forecast for underlying deficit and capital spend for the current year? Is it a monthly requirement in the Council's policies to provide a forecast of capital and revenue to inform ratepayers? The response, the mid-year budget review is scheduled for February-March 2024, and a revised budget is expected to be presented to Council for adoption at the March 2024 Council meeting. Currently, there's not been a detailed budget review for 2023-24, and the original budget is considered the latest forecast. It is not a monthly requirement in the Council's policies to provide a forecast of capital and revenue other than the original budget figures and any revised budget figures. The second question Mr. Baldock posed was, the November balance sheet shows 2022 surplus of $9.3 million. Does this agree with the underlying surplus for 2022? The response, no. The operating surplus and underlying surplus are different amounts. The 2022 comparative surplus amount included in the November balance sheet is the unaudited operating surplus, not the underlying surplus. The operating surplus is the surplus calculated according to accounting standards, generally accepted accounting principles. The underlying surplus is a measure specific to Tasmanian local government, defined in the Local Government Management Indicators Order 2014. And note other jurisdictions have similar measures, but some with differing definitions of inclusions and exclusions from the calculation. A Tasmanian Audit Office guidance paper issued in December 2016 advises, and I quote, the intent of the underlying result is to show the outcome of Council's normal or usual day-to-day operations. It is intended to remove extraneous factors that could create volatility and therefore make it difficult for users to understand the outcome of Council's normal operations, unquote. Also, the November finance report advises the 2022 comparatives included in the report are potentially subject to change during the audit, which is currently in progress. Again, my apologies to Mr. Baldock for not having read those at the previous meeting as was intended. Having said that, those questions and the responses are now a matter of record, and we'll move to questions without notice from members here present. If we could start with down the back on the far to my...
I was thinking not to let me to the end, but that's okay. Linda Harris from Earl Grove in Latrobe, in relation to some questions I asked at council some time ago. And I'm just going to go through what the process of what happened before I ask my questions. I asked some questions on the 19th of December 2022. There was not a response quickly to that, so I mentioned it again on the 16th of January 23 because there hadn't been a reply. There was a reply on the 20th of March, so there was some time before a reply came. And my questions at the time were in relation to the maintenance of the drain that is between Gilbert Street and Earl Grove, where our home backs onto. And I'm going to tell you what the questions were I asked and what the response was, because my questions are in relation to that. The first question was in relation to who is responsible for the maintenance, and the reply I got, and I'll quote, the council is responsible. The second question I asked, what maintenance happens currently to that area? The reply, I quote, was council maintains on an irregular basis. So my questions today are in relation to that. If council is responsible, is the council aware of the activities residents are completing themselves to maintain the land behind their properties, and what are the legalities of this? are they aware if there are any legalities to people actually maintaining them themselves? So that's my first question. The second question is, if council maintains on a irregular basis, can the council update me on what regular maintenance plan is now in place for the water drain backing onto the homes in Earl Grove and Gilbert Street?
Okay. Some of that question we might have to take on notice and provide you with a written response, but I'll ask the General Manager in the first case to respond, maybe even the Manager of Infrastructure Assets.
Yeah, I know after the original questions, the Mayor and I met on site, I think, with you, and we had to look at that. I'd have to, as the Mayor said, speak to the Operations Manager, whether Mr McGaw is aware of some of the issues you raised. Yeah, I think take it notice and just see what the irregular maintenance is. I haven't been up that way for a while, but we did meet on site and we appreciated that.
Contact afterwards to talk to somebody who was in the Greens. I couldn't even find who the team leader was to actually talk to find out what's happening. And my question is there a plan in place? Is there some strategic situation happening to look at that? Because there's some things going on where people are doing things themselves, which is fine, but is that...
There are risks associated with that as well. I understand the questions. And maybe that we also need to ask our Operations Manager to meet with you personally to work through those issues. But again, we can follow up in writing and if need be, make an appointment for him to see you and to work through those issues on site, which is often better to do so. But thank you for both questions. We'll work through things from the left. Next, Shane, if you... Welcome.
Councillors. I think you all know me, but Chris Allison, 65 Walmart Street, Port Sorrel. Anyone that has concerns with that address, I'm still there irregularly and should be moved out by February, end of February. To the Mayor and Councillors, the following three questions. Number one.
Sorry, Shane, to interrupt so soon, but two questions only.
Questions without notice?
Two questions only.
When did that change?
I want to get through all the others to see if we need to extend time. So we may be able to get to another question, but it depends on how long this takes, with all due respect.
Just have to realise which one to leave out. With regards to the rescheduling, no. With the retirement of the General Manager and the position only being advertised online through a local government management consultant company from New South Wales, as this is possibly the most important job you as councillors have, could you please provide the community with all public advertising the Latrobe and Kentish GM position has received and include reasons why it hasn't been advertised in the state's local papers, including the Advocate, Examiner and Mercury?
Want me to answer that first before you go on, or would you rather have your second question?
No, you can give me the answer.
So, okay. So we have advertised online, as you say, and the intent was and is to advertise in the local newspapers. That was before Christmas. There was a decision taken that we were to run 3 ads in each of the 3 local papers, Tasmanian papers that you mentioned. Again, it was prohibitive in terms of cost, but that position will be advertised in those papers. If it hasn't been already, I'm not sure if it was on Saturday. That's the intent, and likewise advertised on council websites, but also on professional websites right across the country and internationally as well. And I think I should provide you with a written response to that so you're aware of what the consultant's done and in which formats and which media outlets. So I'll provide you a written response to that.
It just appears that sort of local Tasmanians sort of haven't been given the opportunity.
I certainly understand.
Question 2. As the Latrobe Council has a number of registered business names, Australian business numbers, ABNs, Australian company numbers, ACNs, along agreements with non-government organisations, NGOs and other councils. Could councillors please provide, in the best interests of the community, all business names, all ABNs, all companies and their ACNs and all NGOs registered and or operating under the Latrobe Council or any affiliates, along with, due to the your resource sharing arrangement, the Kentish Council. That includes any public-private partnerships, agreements with NGOs and other councils that include all signatories to business names, ABNs, company board members and NGOs, both executive and non-executive directors, not exhaustive. We'll email councillors these questions tonight. Thank you.
Take that one on notice. That's a pretty extensive question. I'm not sure I even completely understand the basis of it, but we'll certainly work through that with the General Manager and provide a response should it be appropriate. But thank you.
Basis is for public information.
I understand.
Thank you.
Thank you. Who is next? Neil?
Good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. My question relates to the storage ponds at Latrobe and the correlation between the design capacity of the ponds and the closure of Freers Beach the other day. And are they connected?
It's a damn good question, and there's not a person in this room who knows the answer to that question, I would suggest, but I might ask Mrs. Phoebe if she would to provide a basic response, but I understand what the answer might be.
There's certainly no evidence or no link. Not sure if you're aware, but council, under the recreational water guidelines, under the Public Health Act, we're required to sample recreational waters from December through to March on a weekly basis. Certainly for the last 15 years, I don't think there's anyone here at council that can recall that we've had to close Freers Beach previously. There could be any number of reasons why we received the high E. coli count that we did. You know, it could be something from an animal, from a bird, from a human. I guess it was the follow-up sampling came through all clear as it has done previously. So how you would link a water test result to the sewerage ponds would be very difficult without expensive further investigation.
It comes down to the design capacity of the ponds in the first place. With Freer Street closure, it was high summer. There's a lot of people in Port Sorell camping, filling up the houses. It's pretty much full capacity over the Christmas period. But we've also got additional housing being built, so that puts pressure on the storage ponds. What I want to try and find out is what was the design capacity, say, 15 years ago, as to what it is trying to service now, and if there's been any overflows or overcapacity.
I think it's pretty clear, Neil, on the public record, and it's referred to on social media as much as anywhere just recently, that is the concerns relating to the operation and the size and management of the sewage ponds at Latrobe by Taswater. And there's comment by an adjoining landowner who certainly knows and can clearly articulate when there's been spills and overcapacity and those sorts of things. And those same issues were raised at a public meeting at Port Sorell last year, if I'm not mistaken. But those concerns were raised with Taswater as well. And we are, as a council, concerned about the capacity of that system and the potential impact environmentally on our beautiful, pristine Rubicon River. So, getting back to your original question, though, there is no direct link between a potential spill and the closure of Freers Beach. But having said that, there is an ongoing issue and an issue of concern to council in relation to, as I say, the operation, management and location of those sewage ponds. There is, as again on social media, but also more widely in the media, there's reference to Taswater's long-term plan to close Latrobe settling ponds and to pipe effluent to Pardo. But again, that isn't at this stage, I don't believe, on their 10-year capital works program. So we're looking at a long-term fix there potentially. But in the meantime, I've written to Taswater as a result of that public meeting, raising our concerns. I know that the gentleman from who lives at Latrobe has raised and met with Taswater because we arranged that meeting. And that work will continue with Taswater. Again, I was prompted at the weekend to read through all those comments, and I will reinforce my concerns in another letter to Taswater about that issue. It is problematic for sure.
I mean, I've been snorkelling out around Spy Island, and the seaweed and the sea floor is covered with an algal growth. And just this week, a person that I know from Devonport, they dived off 5 Mile Reef, which is off Ports Royal. I'm not sure of the location, but there was a video on that post, and 5 Mile Reef was covered in algae like it was just rubbish. So there's a correlation there between whether it's the Devonport outfall or the Laruma one. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just raising the
and I'll
temperature a bit.
Understand. And I'll commit to, again, writing to Taswater to raise those concerns on behalf of the community and council. As I say, I'm very concerned again with those, when those residents on social media make all sorts of claims.
Oh, yeah, I get that.
About drains being cleaned out, all sorts of things. But that issue is an ongoing one for us, without question.
The old saying, the clock's ticking.
It is, absolutely. Thank you. Next, Mr. Redgrave, I assume.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay. With the entire Latrobe levee project coming to an end, part of the plan was to have 2 super duper mobile pumps at the ready at a moment's notice if the Kings Creek detention dam weir, what its name is today, located in Kings Park, failed or created ponding. The council please be forthcoming with the full details of these extraordinary pumps that will possibly need to pump at minimum of 30 cubic metres of water per second and up to 150 cubic metres per second, according to insurers' reporting. Where will they be located? Who will be responsible? What brand and model are they, and exactly how much did they cost?
Okay, thank you for the question. The response provided by the Manager of Engineering Assets, as I understand it, the Latrobe Flood Mitigation Project combines a number of elements, including a trailer-mounted mobile dewatering pump, to provide a portable option for deployment during a flood event. Mobile pumping is not required for the design flood event. That is 0.3% AEP in the Mersey River and 1% AEP in Kings Creek, as the low areas within the levee footprint have capacity to store local runoff for the duration of the event. No pumps are sized or intended to cater for a system failure, and pumping 30 cubic metres per second, that is the flow rate in Kings Creek, is not practical and is essentially why the Kings Park diversion was constructed. Each flood event is different, and a portable pump can be moved around the township to potentially reduce water levels that could pond behind the flood levee when the Mersey River is in flood. In an extraordinary event beyond the design event with the mobile pump could reduce the rate of water rise and thereby provide additional time to evacuate should that be necessary. The mobile pump supplied as part of Council's contract with BridgePro is an Atlas Copco PAS 150 M-F model with a maximum flow rate of 540 cubic metres per hour. The trailer-mounted pump will be stored at Council's depot here in Latrobe and will be owned and operated by Council. I will note for the public record that Mr. Redgrave has provided advice of a second question, which I have refused to allow to be asked and answered, and Mr. Redgrave has been advised of that. Thank you. Mr. Firmingham, please.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to thank you for responding to my letter quite quickly. What the letter didn't address was safe handling, how to dispose of this weed, and what to use to get rid of it. Now, I brought a bit of a display of the weed. This weed has actually been poured out 10 weeks ago. I'd like you to look how fresh it is.
Can you just hold it up from back there from mine, Roxley? Okay. So how long ago, sorry?
This has been out for 10 weeks in a wheelbarrow.
Yep.
And it just won't die. This here is the actual flower. This is the seed pod. And this is the thing they call trout. Now, I reckon if I put that in a pot plant, it would grow. I went down to the bridge and had a look. This is October. Some of this has probably grown about 4 metres. I'm just wondering if this and this get on Pig Island where the dogs walk, they're going to close Pig Island.
So, okay. So I might ask the General Manager to respond in the first place, please. And then
So I spoke to a council employee who has been spraying the weed.
Roxley. Sorry for interrupting, General Manager. There's a cord there.
What do you want to have a look at? So the seed pod is off what they call arum lily, and the green stuff is called trad. TRAD. That's the official thing of it. You want to have a look at it? This stuff has been sprayed along the railway line probably 6 weeks ago. Hasn't even affected it.
Okay. General Manager,
I did
please.
speak to a council employee. He's had some experience with spraying it property near your place, and he said he would call in. Maybe he'd been on leave with the Christmas break. If he hasn't called in, he's going to call in and see you, and I guess he can discuss with you the results he's had and what spray he's using.
Yeah.
You haven't met with anyone yet, Roxley?
I've seen one bloke from the council, but he didn't say use this. He just said he was aware of it. But the things I rang up Mount Pleasant and asked them what they use, I've tried that and don't work. So I'm just curious, you know. I don't want to be spraying it. You know, if you do the same thing, is the spray going to kill the fish in the river?
Yeah, understand. So we'll commit to have.
I'll go back to the council employee and
We'll get back to you. Have someone come down and see you personally.
Yeah, I'd like.
I think he did, but obviously
The other thing is disposal. If we put that in the tip,
Yeah, no.
die.
And if it's mulch, it'd be even worse.
Yeah, I mean, I put it in the incinerator.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for raising that, Roxley.
Thank you.
It's an environmental issue for sure. Yeah, we need to really ensure that those discussions reflect the concern. Okay, if there's no one else to speak to, Councillor, Shane's left. I was going to say there might be an opportunity for that third question, but clearly not. So what I didn't do, I apologise to Mr. Redgrave for that, is I was meant to just put in the reasons for councillors and for the record, the reasons I rejected the second question. Those reasons were that the inferences contained within the preamble, in my view, were offensive and deliberately or otherwise reflected a lack of comprehension of the vagaries of forecasting within the budget context. The grounds for refusal, point G in our policy. The second reason for refusing the question was that the question and associated preamble are, in my view, a continuation of the attempt to advance a particular point of view rather than making a genuine inquiry, which is grounds for refusal H. And thirdly, that the preamble contains claims that are inflammatory, inaccurate and inconsistent with the council's governance structures relating to the approval of borrowings, and seeks to question the competency of council staff and or councillors, grounds for refusal D. Those comments are made for the public record and councillors' information. Next item on our agenda, councillors, is 11.1, which is the Planning Development Application Status Report for December 2023, with a recommendation that the report be received. Do we have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Martin, thank you. Councillor Simms. Councillor Martin.
Nothing further, thank you.
Nothing to add. Councillor Simms. Straightforward as usual. Thank you to Mrs. Beebe and the team. Any queries or questions, councillors? Nope. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. And those against? That motion is carried. Thank you. 11.2 is the Building Department report for December 2023 with the associated information and a recommendation that the building and plumbing applications and notifications received for the month of December 2023 be received. Mover is Councillor Simms. Seconder is Councillor Fiddler. Councillor Simms.
I must say this is one of the lowest amount of applications for many years I see, and when I look through the figures, it's housing construction is 0001. It's and I'll put it down to finishing off jobs and things before the Christmas break. So hopefully it's going to increase in the new year.
Thank you for those observations, Councillor Simms. Councillor Fiedler, anything to add?
Nothing further.
Comments or questions, queries? Councillors? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
And those against? That motion is carried also. Thank you. Next on our agenda is 12.1, which is the Child and Youth Safe Organisations agenda item. I might ask for, mover and a second of the recommendations are listed there. There are three of those. That is the report by the Senior HR and WHS Officer concerning Child and Youth Safe Organisations, BBC. And one, we adopt the Safeguarding Children and Young People policy as presented. Two, that we continue to advocate through the Local Government Association of Tasmania for state government support to implement recommendation 6.12 from the Royal Commission and for standardised resources to be available for all councils to implement the Child and Youth Safe Organisations Act 2023 uniformly. And three, establish an internal child safe organisation working group to begin monitoring Council's implementation of the framework. Looking for a mover and a seconder, if we could please, councillors. Okay. Councillor Metzger, thank you. A seconder, Councillor Simms, thank you. Councillor Metzger, would you wish to speak to that, or would you rather have the GM do a summary?
Yeah, no, that's fine. GM.
Yeah, no, very briefly, look, we have a legal obligation to set this framework up. This is based on 2 or 3 other councils in the state working with the Local Government Association of Tasmania. One of the recommendations is calling on the Local Government Association to support the state government putting funding into this. It is going to be a lot of work on councils, but obviously for a very good cause, but it does come at a cost. So we will be looking to form the committee, and that will be made up of, say, the manager of the banking facilities and other areas where we do get involved with youth. But Mrs. Phoebe may like to add to that, or just happy to answer any questions. But the policy was to be implemented by the 1st of January. So we just missed that date. That's why we brought it to today's meeting, and not normally we go through a workshop, the background, but I think it is fairly self-explanatory, and it is based on what 2 or 3 other councils have implemented. And there are certainly quite a few councils bringing it to their January or February meetings. So I apologise for not workshopping it, but it all happened fairly quickly.
The requirement to implement is a priority, of course. Queries or questions, councillors? Just an observation from me, apart from the obvious priority around this, the report refers to the council providing from existing resources the support and the work that has to be undertaken to implement this. And as I said to the General Manager, it's impossible for our staff to do any more basically than they're currently doing. So hence the hope that we get state government funding to access additional resources to implement the work that's got to be undertaken. Yeah, a really difficult space, but the state government just can't keep imposing without providing additional funding for resources. That would be my summary of that particular part of the report.
Particularly, Mr. Mayor, the obligations that put on all sporting clubs, youth clubs, and that is quite onerous. So obviously try and avoid the duplication and rolling out, similar policies across the council areas and across the state, and obviously the local government association and the state government have a role in coordinating that. Okay.
Queries, no more queries or questions? I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
And those against? The motion is carried. Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the 12.2, which is the rollout of food and garden organics, the FOGO service across the Northwest. The recommendation is there. The report concerning the rollout of food and garden organics FOGO services across the Northwest. BBC, the council note the development of communication strategy to support and delivery cargo service to our municipality across the region from mid-2024. Do we have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Simms and Councillor Fiedler. Councillor Simms.
I don't have a problem with the recommendation. I think it's quite acceptable these days for this to happen, so all good.
I'm hoping it also serves to remind our community that this service will be implemented this year, and it doesn't come as a shock when it is implemented. There has been publicity about it, but there will be further publicity, I'm sure. Second was Councillor Fiedler, I think.
Likewise with what Councillor Simms said, I think it'd be a great thing for the municipality. A few people that I've spoken to are actually excited for it to start happening. So, yeah.
Thank you. Queries or comments from councillors? Nope. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
And those against? Motion is carried. Thank the General Manager for his work on that agenda item. Next item, also from the General Manager, is in relation to the membership of the Cradle Coast Waste Management Group. I'm assuming Councillor Metzger has declared an interest in this item and is leaving the room for the record. So yes, membership of the Waste Management Group, as I say, authored by the General Manager. Recommendation is that the report by the General Manager concerning extending the membership of the Cradle Coast Waste Management Group be received, and that the Council endorse the new terms of reference of the Cradle Coast Waste Management Group to include King Island and West Coast councils into the group. A mover and a seconder before I ask the General Manager to speak to the item. Do we have a mover and a seconder, please?
So moved.
Councillor Simms, thank you, and Councillor Wicks. Happy to have the General Manager speak to the item, if you would, please.
Yes, Mr Mayor. I guess the change to the terms of reference to include West Coast and King Island will, this goes through, every council in the state will be part of the Regional Waste Management Group. Like in the 17 years I've been here, they've always didn't see that there was a lot of benefit in joining the Waste Management Group, but now with the levy coming in and the education programs, etc., there's been a bit of to and froing. They will be paying the levy. They want to make sure they get benefits back from payment of the levy. Yes, that's probably been going on 18 months of discussions, but they've now come to an agreement with the Waste Management Group. So I recommend the change to the terms of reference to council. I think it's a big step forward, particularly to those two isolated areas, and they will receive the benefit of working with the other councils in the region.
Sounds very positive. Thank you. Mover, anything further to add? Happy?
I couldn't sum it up any better than Gerald just yet. So,
thank you, Councillor Simms and Councillor Wicks. Any queries or questions from the councillors? Nope. I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
And those against? That motion is carried again. Thank you for that. If someone could ask Councillor Metzger to return to the next agenda item. Thanks, Jonathan. Thank you. Council now handle or deal with item 13.1, which is the finance report for December 2023, where the recommendation is by the team leader finance that the report be received. We have a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Fiedler, thank you, and Councillor Simms, thank you. Councillor Fiedler, do we have a briefing, Mrs. Phoebe?
I could certainly provide you with just some brief comments from.
I'd be happy with that, Councillor Fiedler. You're okay. Thank you, as a mover.
In relation to the operating budget variances, they're mainly minor or timing variances that have been identified in the income statement. There are explanations there. The year-to-date income is 13.847 million, which is below the year-to-date budget by 3.9%. Our expenses were sitting at 8.924 million. There was an unfavourable variance of 3.36% or 289,000. Again, the explanations are there in your report. The year-to-date capital expenditure is below the year-to-date budget quite considerably. This is due to some projects not yet commenced. Those capital projects are going to be reviewed as part of the mid-year budget review. Rate collections for the end of December are sitting at just over 3 million, 28.8%, and our closing cash at the end of December is 9.3 million. Happy to take any questions on those.
Okay. Thanks, Mrs. Phoebe. Councillor Fiddler. Councillor Sims. Okay, questions, some of which may have to be taken on notice if need be. Councillor Baldock.
Well, I would like to go back to a question Councillor Metzke asked in the last meeting about the legal fees being placed in material costs and where that's at. And can we get some transparency and clarity in regards to that? Wouldn't that be something the audit committee should look into and give us some more information in regards to what's happening there?
I think if we're going to discuss legal fees, I know that if we're going to discuss legal fees at all, Councillor Baldock, that will involve legal fees associated with a current case.
I'm not discussing legal fees. I'm discussing where the costs have been placed in the budget.
Need to be very, very careful.
High-level report, but Mrs. Phoebe may like to speak on that.
If you would, please.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, materials and contracts is a high level line item, but under that, those costs are separated. For instance, consultancies, legal fees, IT, all sorts of other line items fall in under that materials and contracts line item. So, but we don't report on those lower levels. It escalates up to the materials and contracts figure, but we, certainly do capture in greater detail those types of costs. It's not all just lumped in as materials and contracts.
Okay. I might ask the General Manager if he's going to
depend on what level council wants them reported at. It may be a workshop issue. You may want to go through and get an example of what could be available off the system. That's probably the best way, Mr. Mayor, whether you're comfortable with the high level approach or whether you want to, I guess, drill down into the more the operating issues.
So, Councillor Mark.
If that detail is provided through the audit committee and that the audit committee is comfortable with that detail, then I think that the line item as it stands would be, given that it's a public document, I think would be enough. Let's, if you're happy, and that's a question, not a motion as such, but let's say, put that into a workshop and see if we can work around as the General Manager suggests and see what level of detail councillors do think is appropriate. And again, within keeping with our roles and responsibilities. So if you don't mind, Councillor Walker, if that's okay, if we can work through that in a collaborative fashion at a workshop and then maybe come back with a motion should that be required.
If we do it in a workshop, we may also take the opportunity. We've been having discussions, particularly on capital works projects, looking at a whole of life costs, because sometimes when we've had some big projects recently where they've gone over 2, 3, maybe even 4 financial years, it doesn't always give you the complete picture. No. So we may bring that back to the councillors and look at some models we've been looking at in terms of reporting. In terms of reporting. So my suggestion is the workshop issue, not only look at the operating side, but also the capital works side we're comfortable with there.
Okay. Mrs. Phoebe?
Sorry, could I just add that we probably would not look at that until after we get the mid-year budget review done, because that's the next.
I understand timing will be around the priorities of the team. I understand. Okay, thank you for the question and the suggested way forward. Any other questions, councillors?
I just have one question.
Councillor Mead.
I wanted to check on the 60-day debtors, and there is a reference there. I think there was $1 million in the 60-day debtors, but it refers to the community development grant from the Department of Infrastructure and Regional Development. Have we got a timeline on receiving that outstanding amount?
If I General Manager or Mrs. Phoebe? Mrs. Phoebe.
I'm not aware that we've been given a timeline at the moment. held up with acquittal, but I can certainly take that question on notice and provide councillors with a response.
If you could, please, so councillors will receive a response via email.
And secondly, just to note, there are, Councillor Brown's not here, but there are some projects that they're only minor that are completed. So I appreciate there's a number of capital projects that we haven't got through, and there are some that concerns me about unlikely to be in a position to commence. We'll obviously talk about that during the budget. But Beer Street has obviously been completed, as well as the cricket net. So when you look through, there are items that are being ticked off, and that's very much welcome from a community perspective.
Okay, thank you. If there are no other queries or questions, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? As against? Motion is carried. Thank you, and thank you, Mrs. Phoebe, and your team for the work that's gone into that agenda item. Next item is the 13.2, which is the council allowances and expenses for the quarters ended September and December of 2023. Information has been provided. Recommendation is that the report by the team leader finance concerning council allowances and expenses for the quarters ended September and December 23 be received. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Wicks and Councillor Sims. Councillor Wicks.
For voting and transparency.
Phoebe.
Nothing untoward or any other month, really.
Councillor Sims.
Applies under the Local Government Act 1993.
Okay, any queries or questions, councillors? No problem. Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? The motion is carried. Thank you. Next item is, if I'm not mistaken, Sarah, 16.2. The delegates' reports. Information has been provided by both the Mayor and Deputy Mayor. For the recommendation, those reports be received and noted. We have a mover and a seconder. Councillor Fiddler is looking at Councillor Wicks to see. Councillor Sims, mover, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Wicks, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Fiddler, thank you. My correction. Councillor Sims.
You've both been out there doing liaison work.
Busy time before Christmas. Thank you. Councillor Fiddler, any comments, questions?
Likewise of Councillor Sims's comments, and we thank you for the work you do.
Thank you very much. That's appreciated. Other queries or questions, councillors? Put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. 16.3 is the council decision status report with a recommendation that the December 2023 status report of open council meeting decisions be received. We have a mover to that effect. Councillor Mead, thank you. And second is Councillor Fiddler. Thank you. Councillor Mead.
Questions. I'm just not finding my second one, but the first one was asking about the Road Safety Committee. Read that is no longer a committee. I wanted to get an understanding of who we actually report to now moving forward, if there are any concerns.
Yeah,
General Manager.
They have been looking at the terms of reference of the Road Safety Committee. I know Deputy Mayor Lane at Kennish is keen to keep it going, so I think there will be a committee meeting reasonably soon because while a meeting hasn't been held for quite a while, she believes it's still an appropriate avenue, and she's had feedback from bus operators and others that they believe there is an opportunity for maybe only meet 3 times a year, but somewhere just to work through some of those issues. I think she's also had approaches from the police that they found it useful.
Okay, thank you. I misread, perhaps, because it sounded like it had been closed. It was going to be an independent group, external council. Thank you.
Oh, well,
that's good. Come back on that.
If you would follow it up and provide some clarity, and particularly around the membership of that as well, if that's going to move forward. Please, General Manager, did you have a second question in relation to the status report, Councillor Mead? Or time to find it? Anyone else? Questions? Nods? No.
The other one from me was just with regard to the timeline for the open space strategy, just for us to get an understanding when we're likely to hear the next stage of that. And the other one was just a comment on a lot that's going on that's completed. in this report, which is good to see.
So you have time frames?
With me, we did, there's Chris Clark. It was a project he wanted to finish off, but unfortunately his workload's, I think, been very heavy at Central Coast. So I've got the draft reports. I'm working through that at the moment, even since come back from Christmas break. It's been a heavy workload, but it is a priority to get that to the stage where it can come to the council. But there are quite a few issues that I need to go back to consultants on. It's just not quite right. And I have spoken to the consultant. He was on holidays at the moment. He said, let's touch base this week and just to talk through some of the issues. At one stage they referred to the Mersey River, not the Rubicon River. Some of them are just mistakes, which can be quickly fixed.
So can we ask for an indicative time frame for when that might come to council?
I do my best, but it depends how many other interruptions I get every day. Like today I was had a list of projects, but
in the first quarter of the year, would you suggest? Or
no, for sure. No, I'm treating it as a priority.
First quarter of...
But it is quite a big document, with lots of issues. And one of the other things that it was a combined project between Latrobe and Kentish. Like it's just working through it, but they hadn't separated the recommendations from Kentish and Latrobe. They may refer to a project at Latrobe, Portsarell, then something at Sheffield, and et cetera, et cetera. So just trying to, that's not a big job, but I think Latrobe Council will want to see the Latrobe Council projects and Kentish Council will want to see the Kentish Council projects. So it's just some formatting that just needs fixing to make it easier. Okay. But I will hopefully in the next month get it finished.
You've got Sarah back now, so
that will make a difference.
Absolutely.
And it was a busy December.
Okay, thank you for that. If there are no other questions in relation to the status report, I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? The motion is carried. Next item is item 17, and 17.1 is the Portsarell Advisory Committee meeting held on the 29th of November. Gosh, get that right. And
maybe if I could speak to this one, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Most councillors already realise we actually approved these minutes at the December meeting. However, there was a busy time getting the agenda out, and on, I guess, closer inspection, we thought it was better to bring them back to the meeting, particularly around the dog management policy. I think Councillor Fiddler was at the meeting. There was quite a lot of discussion about the dogs on beaches at Portsarell, and I just thought, for clarification and looking at the notes made of the meeting, this is the summary. This has been an issue for a number of years. Previously, we had a recommendation from the Portsarell Advisory Committee that there's no warnings, and we just issued on-the-spot fines. That didn't prove very popular at all. And in the end, I think council backed down a bit. So I guess council needs to see what they're comfortable with. Certainly the members of the advisory committee were very strong. And I do see on social media that people do the wrong thing out there. But do you want to give warnings, or is it, if you've done the wrong thing, you get fined? I think one of the issues that came up in the discussion was the need to review the signs on beaches again, because there's a lot of points. And I know we did that 3 or 4 years ago, Mrs. Phoebe, before. But signs get removed, they get overgrown. But if we are going to start issuing the fines again, we need to make sure that everything else is in place. I just thought I'd bring it back, Mr. Mayor, given the sensitivities around it.
In relation to that, the recommendation is that council review the current dog management policy for Portsarell area relating to the time period dogs are allowed on the beach being reduced to increase the time non-dog owners can enjoy the beach. And secondly, that more frequent patrols be undertaken. But the review of the policy would involve a workshop.
That's right.
Agenda item, I'd expect. That's what's been recommended in those.
I guess it's number 2 that they probably want done this summer period. Number 1 will take a bit longer. Number 2 is that more frequent patrols be undertaken by the animal control officer, and where appropriate, fines be issued for non-compliance. It's a little bit softer than what the recommendation was 3 or 4 years ago, where we did issue a number of signs.
Fines.
Number of fines, and quite a bit of backlash on it.
Okay, there's the recommendation. do we have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Fido is mover, Councillor Mead as seconded. Anything further to add, Councillor Fiddler?
No.
Councillor Mead?
I support the motion, but most importantly, we need responsible dog owners. We won't have these issues if people train and look after their dogs appropriately. Certainly it'll be an additional cost to council to increase having the dog catcher in that area, but it is important that we encourage people to do what is correct. So, dogs are everywhere. They even go into cafes nowadays. So they are people's companions, but we want people to be responsible. So I support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Mead. Any further contributions, councillors? Okay, put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. 18 and 19 we don't need to deal with. 20. 20 is a recommendation that council go into closed session, and doing so deal with those issues listed on the agenda. Do we have a mover? Councillor Wicks, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Martin, thank you. All those in favour? Those against? Motion is carried, and we will now move into closed session, but ideally we can have, let's stay until 6:05, 3 or 4 minutes, just to catch our breath, have a drink, stretch the legs and whatever. Thanks, Neil. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we'll get you that appointment.
Oh, that's okay.
No, I know. It's an issue for us. We've been up there a number of times.